Welcome everyone. This is John Metcalf from Sow and Grow Regenerative. Um, so it's been a while since I've posted a video, and right now I'm going to be interviewing uh, my new friend called Cormac Harkin, and we met on the school platform. Check that out if there's anything you want to learn. It's really inspiring. It's a social media platform, but it's very different to anything else. It's all about creating the passion um, and purpose in your life and sharing it with other people. So, this is actually a new series of podcasts, interviews, etc. It's going to be called Permaculture Practitioners, and it's something that I will be showcasing on the school network. I'll pop all the details below. But me and Cormac met on school, and interesting guy. He just asked me to go onto his podcast, so we had a good one. So I thought that I'd return the favour to him, and I want to find out more about Cormac and what he's doing. And really, permaculture practitioners is about plotting the stories of permaculture permaculture practitioners, mainly in the UK, but I will be doing international stuff to really kind of just showcase and demonstrate to people what permaculture is, how it can change people's lives, and why I think, and I'm sure Cormac thinks, is that actually it has the power to really make a massive change um, within ourselves, within our communities, and the wider world. So we'll get right into it. Cormac, how you doing, mate?
All right. Thanks very much for having me on, Joe.
No worries.
Mm.
So we're getting into winter now, Cormac. Um, Things are obviously slowing down in the garden. Certainly, maybe not for us. I try to slow down in these times, just mainly because I have a lot less energy, especially where we are in the kind of northern hemisphere. Um, but certainly, I think now is a time for reflection and kind of working out what we want to do in 2026. So, Cormac, just give us a little bit about yourself and what first brought you to permaculture, and then why you decided to kind of start practicing it.
Yeah. So, name's Cormac Harkin. I'm in Derry in Ireland. I am a permaculture designer, part-time engineer, part-time podcaster, and a lot more as well. Um, and the permaculture journey for me is not quite the standard one. So, I had the first ideas of buying land maybe about 20 years ago. I was working with a farmer, and we were contracting, we were electronics repair. And when he finished, he was moving home to Cyprus, where he was buying a plot of land and starting a farm. And that's how he was going to live out his retirement. And I thought this was great. So researched it and stuff, and then went to buy my own plot of land here in Ireland. And at the time, I was getting an acre for €50,000. I went to the bank, had no money. Went to the bank, said, "Can I please borrow some money?" He says, "No, not 50,000. We'll give you 300,000 to build a house and the land." It's like, no chance. This is pre 2008. So I says, "Right, well, what I'll do is I'll go away and save some money, and then I'll just buy the land outright when I can." But then the crash happened, life happened, and that never happened again. So that was my sort of first foray into it. And then when I got my own property, when I got married then in 2012, um, basically like the garden was a bit of a mess, and I started gardening. Just sort of getting the place tidy, and then once I got the place tidy, they sort of I'm not a person to sit around, so I thought started watching Gardener's World. Uh, I don't know if anybody with Monty Don and stuff. It's very famous here in the UK, and but didn't really take to the fancy gardening. And then when they started doing the odd bit of like fruit growing or vegetable growing, then sort of came back to me what I was thinking 20 years ago. Maybe I could grow something here. Started gardening here, but still, I think I bought some tomatoes and bought some feed, and I was using fertilizer and stuff. And then, they cut a long story short, that led to sort of permaculture gardening. And then it was more the sustainable. So I went down that rabbit hole of gardening, and then the rabbit hole of permaculture. And then I thought, well, no, that's a better way of doing it. Um, I didn't like the idea of chemicals all over the place.
Mm.
So just started uh, a front garden. I got some scaffolds and planks, threw a lot of random stuff in, like carrots, lettuce. It was a total disaster, but I actually got a wee bit of veg from it. And then the taste of the fresh lettuce, I haven't been able to eat store-bought lettuce ever since, just because of the nice crispy taste, and you're eating it straight away. And then again, I just sort of led on to other things. Um, and then my back garden was a mess. So I decided we had to sort of do that up because we were having kids. We
Mm.
wanted to make it a nice place for them. So I observed that for maybe a year before implementing a design. And this is before I knew anything really about permaculture design. But I managed to do an okay job of it. So there was a deck in there that we dug up, but I made raised beds out of the decking. So I reused resources that I had. The observation part, I observed for a year, and I seen where the sun was most of the day, and that's where I put the patio. And then the people telling me, why are you putting the patio there? Sure, that's not beside the house. Everybody puts their patio beside the house. And I was like, well, that's where I get the most sun. It's in the northeast of the garden. Um, I had just things I So I was doing a bit of practicing, a bit of observing, and then the garden turned out lovely. But it was a very pristine garden. It was very much like the lawn, the clean surfaces, but I had that raised bed. And then what I did, I started growing lettuce then in that raised bed. And that sort of was hooked at that stage. That has changed. That I have had chickens out the back. I have started raising worms, and then just things spiraled out of control
Mm.
until the point where it was a mess. And then I thought, right, this isn't really, although I'm doing all the things, I'm doing raising chickens, I'm creating compost. There's no real coherent system here. And then that's when I was sort of getting into the more the permaculture design. And
Mm.
when then I did a PDC then in 2019. So I did that online with Jeff Lawton. And then I was lucky enough when I got that PDC with the work I had been doing in my own garden, I could demonstrate that I could grow food. And then I got a job then as a freelance designer, completed 20 odd designs now. And then that was started Vine Permaculture. And then started the podcast then as part of Vine Permaculture.
Wow.
Uh,
So how long a time was that from that second time that when you bought your house and you started doing that to when you to up till now, basically?
so 2012 was when I bought the house. 2015 I put in the garden design. So that's when I implemented it and I actually installed it. And then I got my PDC in 2021, 22.
Okay.
I've been
Similar
designing
time to
since.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. So more about the permaculture designing. Um, so just kind of briefly tell us who you've done designs for, and also how going through the whole design process has changed the way you think about a garden or an ecosystem, that type of thing.
Yeah, so the work was with an American company, so it was freelance work, so they generated the leads.
Mm.
So I've done, and then they had a worldwide uh sort of sales funnel basically. So I've done a job, one here in Ireland, I've done one in Sweden, one in Holland, in Amsterdam, and then the rest were in the United States.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's mostly small backyardens from quarter acre up to an acre. There was some joint projects I worked on. Was a two homesteads were like 5 acres, and I done a small part of it. And then one of the designs, which was really interesting, was for a big property developer. And
Mm.
they were basically getting a plan for it was like 40 houses, and each of the 40 houses had 1 acre lots. Well, we didn't do them lots, but we did like they had a lake and they wanted what is he called? Farm to Fork restaurant there.
Right.
So the way I looked at it, it was basically a prepper community for people with money.
Ah,
It,
okay.
it was an enclosed community. So there was three parts to that. So I designed the U pick. So it was basically berries, so people could walk around and pick the fruit and the berries. So
Oh,
that was like a community U pick where it was as part of your HOA or whatever it was. They
yeah.
could walk in and anybody could just go in and pick the fruit. And then there was a centropic design done for that, and then the farm to fork produce. So that
Mm.
was three of us worked on that design. So that was really interesting. That was my first project. So started at the deep end.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
But the rest, and then what has really changed or what I learned most was the people aspect of it.
Mm.
So it's very easy looking at the systems and going right. Um, oh, I need a swale, I need Google culture, I
Mm.
need to show off how smart and intelligent of a designer I am. But the temptation's there. But once you actually, I was working with experienced designers, and then you learn. Well, basically, when you're dealing with someone, a homeowner, like what do you eat? It's like
Yeah.
there's no point in you growing 100 pound of beets and you don't like beetroot. Uh, so it's really being client focused,
Mm.
person focused. How much time do you have? What food do you eat?
Yeah.
And really doing the design around the person. What's your mobility? How many hours do you have? And that's where you start. So you don't really start with a food, you start with a person. I
Mm.
think that's probably the most important lesson to learn.
Yeah, that's a great lesson.
Mm.
And not weirdly enough, I think this is probably most people, I think most people go into permaculture for growing the food, but soon realize that actually it's probably more of a people-centered practice than anything else because, you know, we want to get away from even massive farms that perhaps may have permaculture principles or they might be, you know, polyculturing. If you have to walk for miles until you can sit down or whatever, or, you know, access to water or even shade, right? And it's a hot day, it's useless, right? I mean, it's going to make your time, even though it might be beautiful and without chemicals, it's going to make that experience not as nice. And I think that's what I've learned is the people care is really where it's at. Um, and that's, yeah, just something we learn through experience. So,
Yeah, and particularly what I always like to do is throw a surprise in there. So
mm,
if you're talking to the client, so you'd have an initial or consultation with them, and then you'd maybe have you do like an outline design, and you'd have a follow up. So
mm,
you're getting to know these people quite well. So I would always throw something nice in, something as simple as a like a pergola to
yeah,
encourage them to go down to that part of the garden where maybe they can't see the house. So
yeah,
you're encouraging them just to get away and just
yeah,
escape from the house, which is something they haven't thought of themselves.
yeah,
And then that encourages them to go down the garden, and then they're in their garden. So you've given them an excuse to go out. So it's
mm,
creating a space that they want to be in. It's not a space where it's like, oh, I have to walk down there and collect those eggs. It's a space where they're getting up in the morning and go, oh, I can't wait to go out and see how my chickens are, or
yeah,
I'm going to read the newspaper in the sun because that's at catch say it's east. That's where the sun rises, and I'm going to go up and have a cup of coffee and sit there. Things like that I think are very important.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's I feel like that as well. And actually part of the reason I kind of created the school community was to encourage people being outside, but not making it difficult for them to be outside. You know, so just creating your garden so it's so inviting that even if it's, you know, spitting with rain, you still want to go out there because there's just something magical You know, I always think about the secret garden type of thing. You know, it's like you create this space, and one of those, what was it? What was his name? But he was quite a famous permaculturist in the UK. He's died now, but he had a permaculture plot on the Scottish borders, Graham Bell. And he's like, well, the garden's like an extension of the house. No, the house is the extension of the garden. And it's like if you can really make that space so inviting that you just want to be out there, whatever the weather, then that's giving something to someone that they're going to cherish, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and what I like as well is like the garden's always evolving, so we can kind of step into that space and evolve with it, and we can forget about a lot of our worries when we're just in that space. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And quite often as well, say for example, it's a quarter acre garden. You don't have to design the full quarter acre. That could be too much for someone. And you're allowed a lawn.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
things like this that, a permaculture garden doesn't have to be a quarter acre stuffed with plants. It can be a manageable space that you like. So it's tailored to you. So it's the garden, but you're using permaculture principles to design the garden for the person.
yeah.
You're not throwing all these permaculture things in and saying, well, you have no, it's I always joke that no, they're going to take away your permaculture certificate if you don't do all these things.
Yeah, I know, and it's funny, isn't it?
Uh,
It can be easily we can get pulled into that kind of paradigm, and I think for me, permaculture is a framework, and it gives you a really good way to structure your garden and things to think about, right? Things to consider. And then if you just, because you can't always use, on every situation, you can't always use every permaculture principle because it becomes a bit too heady. It's got to be something you live in. And as you have that experience, the observation and interaction, all the others start to make sense because you're experiencing it and you're like, ah, even I'm sitting here capturing and storing energy. I'm capturing the sunlight and storing it, and actually, it's charging me up. It's giving me that. So yeah, it's brilliant. So yeah, so the whole designing thing, you're part of a designing group, is that right?
yeah, I was. I'm no longer part of that.
Oh, okay.
So basically, at one stage there was 46 designers as part of that company,
Yeah,
all freelance. I think now there's maybe a dozen there.
yeah. So what did that just fizzle out or
I just moved on with doing things with Vine, just personal circumstances. I couldn't at the time I couldn't do design work,
right, sure,
and
yeah.
then things just. But that company was very fluid. There was people joining all the time and leaving all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Mm.
tell us about the vine, permaculture vine, um, and what that's about and what you're looking to do with that in the future.
So the podcast started off and still is more or less an educational vehicle for myself,
Mm.
and basically it's something I can share and contribute to the permaculture community, if you like. So as you can tell, I can talk for hours. So I think it's many years spent in pubs drinking.
Oh,
Uh, so it's like I'm generally interested in people. So then when I started out, it was like, right, how do I make a career out of this? Yes, I'm doing design work, but the work was hit or miss. So it's like, how do I actually make a career from this? And then I was like, well, how do you find that out? Well, just ask people who are doing it. So, and then it was like, right, who's practicing permaculture? Started off just by a couple of people I knew, and then put an ad on Facebook. So it started off with Renee, she's in the Philippines. Katie, I worked with her. She was in the New York State, and then Colin was in Switzerland. And then it was just sort of, it took off from there, where I was every week talk to a different practitioner, find out what they're doing, how they got their education. And then I was able to share that then through the podcast. And it was just a vehicle for me then to find out about people and share. And that's basically how it started. And it's still going strong. We've had a few, it started off careers, education, and business. Now it's more permaculture, people, and projects.
excellent.
Because I want people to come on, talk about their projects, and
Yeah,
demonstrate, as you know, the vast range of projects that people work on. Some
Mm,
people have no land of their own, they're community gardeners, whilst other people have multiple acres.
mm,
And although the circumstances are the same, it's the same principles used across the people's circumstances. And then I'm trying to learn from that and then implement it myself, both in my own property. And then one of the big things too is now is so if I was to do design and there was swales to be put in, I've never put on a swale, I can pick up the phone now and
mm,
say,
mm,
"You're the swale expert, can you come help me?" Or what has come out of it is a Telegram group. There's like 38 designers across there. And now we have like peer review support. So if people's looking for could be anybody know anybody who sells plants in Kansas,
mm.
or it could be like going someone and look over this design that I did for just peer review. Um, so yeah, podcast is going well. I do a monthly live with Permaculture Canada, where we just talk about what we're doing every month and then bring a guest on. So like tonight's program is about basically permaculture events,
Excellent.
and we have round tables as well where we bring three or four permaculturists together and just chat about things like climate change. How does permaculture offer solution? I think one of the ones was uh, community resilience through permaculture. So
Mm,
all these different topics, just getting people talking, getting people networking together. People have actually been guests on the podcast together, and they went off and worked together.
mm.
Um, so it's bringing people together as well as educating myself.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
So, what are your plans for 2026?
So 2026, I have two focuses. So based on what I've learned on the podcast and just the community, permaculture community in general, quite often you see in permaculture, like I get sent a thing today on Facebook, grow all your own food in on an eighth of an acre, which is fantastic and inspiring. But does that actually suit everybody? So what problems does permaculture solve?
Mm,
So with all these things happening in the world, for example, climate change, people feel helpless. So it's trying to bridge that gap between here's the problem and permaculture is a solution. So climate change, oh, people are getting distressed. There's war in the news, all this stuff. Well, permaculture offers a solution. What was it? It was a Bill or Jeff says all the world's problems can be solved in a garden. So the first focus is on presenting permaculture as a solution for people to all the problems to people who have never heard of permaculture. So I'm really creating some content around that. And then once the second focus then is on demonstrating small systems to get people started.
mm,
So like demonstrate my own cold composting system. So I had all these things going up as I was saying before, but I was going to move house. So I like ramped everything down, but now I'm staying. So now I can ramp everything up in a controlled manner and actually put a proper design in place. So I'm going to try and help people basically start from scratch, but I'm not promising to grow all your own food or become self-sufficient. It's basically just get started, grow compost, and basically take it back to the bare bones rather than these big. There's enough grandiose plans on the internet about people doing all this brilliant, massive stuff like buy 10 acres and move to the country and escape. It's more like, no, just start where you are, grow a compost heap, and then that's your system. So you're taking your food scraps into your compost. Your compost goes to soil. That's your first simple permaculture system. And then, I can do that now in January, February. So then come March, how do you plant food? How do you plant seeds? And just taking it and demonstrating really small, simple systems that people can manage. And like I carry the message that you don't have to, we're not going to be self-sufficient here. We just have to implement a few systems. And hopefully that's enough to encourage more people to take it up without
mm.
feeling overwhelmed. And then that will lead, once they start, for me, anyway, I started small and then every year adding stuff. And then before you know it, you have plenty going on, but it's not overwhelming.
That's great. I mean, actually, we I think we're probably wanting to do quite similar things in 2026.
Right.
So I think it'd be good
Uh,
if we teamed up in some way for that because
yeah.
um, yeah, similar for me is helping people to establish edible gardens, staying with them for about a year, and whether that's online or in person, um, but ultimately making them, you know, um, designers themselves, right? So they can actually understand how just in the small space of their garden, how I mean, my garden is only 40 foot by 30 foot. It's not very big. Um, but even that, if you really understand it, it will take you at least a year to really get to know and build that relationship with your garden so you know what's happening at different times of the year and all these processes. I'm sure you'll agree, Cormac, is just about
Yeah.
creating these cycles, right? And that's how something becomes self-sufficient is if you have those cycles in place, all you need to do is just help it along, just give it a few gentle pushes and yeah.
Yeah, well, our lead magnet, if you like, our free document is basically asking the questions that you should be asking about yourself and your property.
Mm,
So it's not just get straight on there and do. It's like you have to have that period of self-reflection and go, how many hours a week do I have?
mm,
Like how much time do you have? How much energy do you have? What's why? Finding your why that's going to keep you
yeah, yeah,
motivated.
exactly. And that's so
So
important, isn't it? Because if you don't have the why, if you forget why you're doing it,
yeah.
it's easily to be like, I'm not going out there in the rain.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what we're offering. And then basically what you can do if you do that and you want help, well we'll go through that with you. And it's like we'll sit with you for an hour and go through your why, go through your questions. And then if you want more, we can help you then basically do the environmental survey for your life. What's your climate like? What can you grow? Like you can't grow bananas in England.
Mm.
Well, you can if you try, but I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner.
You need a greenhouse, right?
Yeah. But that's I try to avoid. Like I don't have a greenhouse,
Mm.
but again, I want to remove them barriers of like, yes, get a greenhouse in a couple of years,
Yeah.
but what can you actually do now and keep it simple
Yeah.
and actually be honest about what you can achieve because uh, if you're watching 30 minutes of news a day, that's 3.5 hours a week. Did you have turn off the news and just spend 30 minutes and it's what can you achieve in that 30 minutes a day is enormous over the course of a year.
Exactly. And this is what I started to discover is it's perspective, isn't it? When we change the lens we see things through, things really start to change because we spend a lot of time on things that don't benefit us. They're a way to unwind, but actually we can be out in the garden and that's our way to unwind because a lot of garden tasks don't take a lot of strength, they can be quite easy. So I think, it's yeah, really important that we kind of just remember, go back, as you're saying, go back to those basics and just work out why, how, and what you're going to do, and just plan your week ahead, and yeah, and also think of like how it will benefit you. The short term and the long term gains. You can. I go out in the morning every morning, providing it's not really bad weather, and I watch the sunrise. And just that simple pleasure actually sets me up for the day. It gives me that boost that allows me to, navigate through the day. So yeah,
Yep. And the important thing as well is uh, getting started is do one thing well, like a salad garden. Even if you live like in a terraced house and you have like a concrete 10 by 10 back garden, you still can grow salad in that. If you could get an old pallet, you could,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, get some soil and you could put it together. You could have it raised, and then just do that.
exactly. And this
And
is it.
it's one thing, and I just focus on that and get it right. The next year you'll be itching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It'll
yeah.
motivate you. and there'll
Don't
be,
overwhelm yourself, right?
yeah, and there'll be rewards that you haven't even thought of.
Mm, exactly.
So
Yeah, that's it. And it's experience, isn't it? So cool. So you talked about this lead magnet. How can people get kind of in touch with you and find out more about this? And also, where can they find your podcast and anything else you think will be helpful to anyone that's interested?
yeah, so if you go to the vinepermaculture.com/start, and you can sign up for the free booklet there. And then we'll send you some emails to try and inspire you to get started. And if you need help, we're there for you as well. Doesn't matter where you are in the world at this stage. Uh, we can help. And then if you do want to design and you're in America, I have contacts all over the place that I can find you designers as well if you need that help. I'm not saying I'm doing all the designs myself, so it's about me helping you. So, like, I do not want to do design in Florida again.
Ah, yeah, I bet. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just too complicated. There's too many trees I don't love there. I
Yeah,
always have to get
yeah.
somebody else to check out work. I will not never do one, but I do know people in Florida
Mm,
that if you wanted help, I can put you in touch with.
excellent.
So it's finepermaculture.com/start. The podcast you'll find YouTube at the Permaculture Vine. We're also on Substack. If you search for it there, the Permaculture Vine podcast, and you'll find us on Apple and Spotify. And then I have my own school as well. I'm not sure how far I'm going to push that yet, but we have, if you go to school too and look for the
I'll put
permaculture
it in the
van.
description box for them, mate.
Yeah. But the most important thing is go get that PDF and it'll just get you started thinking what's
Mm,
appropriate for your property and just get you in the right mindset and just reassure you that you don't have to be looking at like a full food forest or no place round full of vegetables. You just have to start somewhere, and then you could start with composting. You could start with growing. There's multiple things.
yeah, excellent.
It's not all about gardening.
Excellent. Thanks, Cormac.
Yeah,
So I'll be interviewing you again to plot your progress, but really
great.
appreciate you being on. We'll have a chat afterwards. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, this is John from Sow and Grow Regenerative. Keep sowing and growing, and there'll be more from me in the future. Thanks.